I've delayed talking about this part, about how I saw my mother, how I think I loved my mother. I loved her as I did my aunts and all women who we passed by as I walked with her, as she did the family shopping. She walked, I walked. She always wore dresses. Once even I was made to do so by my father. He was told it was a way of punishment. I thought of it as a reward. I was happy moving around the house that day and being careful walking about outside. He spanked me when, as he removed my dress, I cried. A brother, a father. I felt confused. I felt odd. I loved being with my mother, walking, listening, watching. But I drifted into loneliness, into fear. My life became just fear. I feared almost all men. My Grandpa Deitch and Uncle Alec excepted. Dave was strong, I weak. Dad was strong, I weak. Something seemed wrong here. Early I found that I loved women. I found males distasteful and thought myself lonely and odd. And this gets even more painful. And I become reluctant to scribble what has to follow. I'm now the old lady trying to tell the story of herself as a troubled young boy. And so I regress just into one kind of an example that sticks out, that lost shoe at Sunnyside. Was that the same day my brother brought me to swim, and he threw me into the lake because I felt I couldn't swim. He just tossed me into the lake from this wooden pier we call the breakwater, going out into the lake. And he took me out there. And I suppose he thought swimming was something as natural to me as to him. Instead, I panicked. The fear, the terror in the water was but brief. After all, I survived, didn't I? The shoe. It was World War II. Only later did I know what that was all about. And so we have the story of this old lady and his shoe. We were fortunate in the town I was raised in. We had the lake, the south end, the east end of Lake Michigan, where on a very clear day from the bluff, one could see the city of Chicago 50, 60 miles away. And there were beaches, wonderful beaches, and the whole town's west side was a series of beaches, some private, many public, on both sides of the river that flowed into the lake there. So we had plenty of water. It was our playground, except I was afraid to go into it. The old lady in the shoe, Sunnyside was one of these beaches. It was the one where our gang, the Pearl Street gang, hung out in the summer. That was later. Before I went to school, during the Second World War, we were pretty much left alone. My father off in boats, delivering war goods mostly in the United States. But he made a mere man's run, piloting goods to Russia, the most dangerous of wartime tasks, which he survived, of course, to raise some kids. Mother and the neighborhood women, they did bandages for soldiers and other tasks, other work. And so we were pretty left alone, and I was left in my brother David's care, meaning that I was lucky when I was left alone. The swimming lesson was but one of his means of care, making me grow up to be big and strong as he and his father were. The shoe incident, only vaguely, though had he a part in, remains very, very strong in the memory. That one incident. What does remember of it is that I had an ugly tennis shoe. If ugly is a supreme word for a stinky first step beyond infancy shoes, I recall only that I most likely left them with my street clothes as I would wade along the shore when the others were swimming. When I returned, one of my shoes was gone. I walked home barefoot, carrying the other, my mother in agony. I didn't understand rationing, only that I'd lost a shoe I didn't like anyway. I had no idea of the shoe's value, but she marched. Memory tells me she ran. She ran me to the beach, down Pearl Street, to the bluff, down the viaduct, to the beach, where the shoe wasn't. The war ended in 1945 with me still under 5, but in school. I had only a single pair of dress shoes for at least the remainder of the war. I would wear them to school, to church, and at home would walk around in socks or slippers or barefoot. I was mostly then at home, barefoot, or in these slippers. In a way, I learned to enjoy being alone at home. More frequently in my mother's bedroom, in her clothes. So perhaps best to symbol this whole story I'm telling might be this dress I'm wearing now, my mother's dress. For my entire life, almost from the beginning, I felt odd in that I couldn't wear a dress to go about my life. And I had a fear of doing so. So as my life developed through a whole series of, I can best say, bumps and bounces, of being good at whatever I was doing, wasn't doing what I was doing. So there's this conflict always within me, an obsession to be allowed to be who I am. And yet at the same time, a tremendous fear as long of not being able to do so. And the times I've learned, and one I think does learn in succession, and one builds up remembrances and things to do and things that have to be done.